Welcome in, everybody, to another episode of 410 Sports Talk. I'm Glenn Martin here with my co-host James Haskell. In this episode, we're going to discuss an upcoming visit to Baltimore that is going to make Ravens fans quite happy, I think. But before we get into it, give us a subscribe, give us a like. We'll keep you up to date on all the Ravens news. Jimmy, let the people know who's coming to visit Baltimore.
Yeah, the big man, edge rusher Justin Houston. Houston will be landing on Tuesday here at the castle. That's right. You like that? I'm excited about it. News has broke that he will be coming to visit the Ravens. And I'm excited, man. That's the news. I want to get into, our thoughts and the potential of, fit of him on the team, as well as the timing if there is a signing. But initially, I'm excited about it. This is a guy that you and I have both pegged. I think I started bringing you along a little bit.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm excited about Justin Houston, who he is as a person, but not even just that, his production on the field, and we'll get into those things as well. But overall, excited about it. I think that this is a very Ravens-like move.
Mm-hmm.
So what were your initial thoughts?
Well, I mean, so going way back when we first started looking at the list of impending edge free agents, admittedly, I kind of overlooked him at first, and then until you pointed him out and made me do a deeper dive, and really since then I've been huge on the Justin Houston bandwagon because first of all, I just assumed he was older than he is. He just turned 32 years old, so he's not. I thought he was maybe like 35. I mean, it just seems like he's been around for so long.
He's looked like a grown man too, like just his feet, like he's looked. He's one of those guys that can be 25 or 40. Do you know what I'm saying?
Right. And he never, it's not like he came in the league with baby fat on him.
Right.
None of that. This guy looked like a grown man from the day he walked into Kansas City, really, when he was drafted to the Chiefs. But it just, like I said, just turned 32 years old and incredible availability. Like this guy, he doesn't miss a lot of games. I mean, last year he started and played in all 16, same as the year before that. He played and started in 12 of the games in 2018 and 15 of 16 and 17 in 2017. So the guy is incredibly resilient and tough and plays through, the minor nicks and injuries that come along the way of an NFL season, but also maintains productivity. I mean, this guy, even in the seasons where he misses a few games, still ends up being more productive than some of, the recent edge guys that we've had in Baltimore. I mean, last year he, in a down year, had 8 sacks or 9, depending on which source you're looking at, which is kind of interesting. Some sources have him as 9 sacks last year, and some have 8.
Some have 10.
Yeah, I don't know why there's a discrepancy, but I'm going to go with Pro Football Reference, which is where we turn to for pretty much all of our stats. And then in 2019, he had 11 sacks, including 44 combined tackles to go along with it,
and 40 hurries.
Yeah, I mean, the guy has just been ultra productive his entire career. I mean, dating back to when he had 22 sacks in 2014. So the guy is just a natural pass rusher. He's a perfect scheme fit. He fits the bill from a physical standpoint. I mean, he's 6'3", 270, which is the size that the Ravens usually look for at the outside linebacker position, a guy that can hold up against the run as well as give you some pass rush and even drop into some coverage. So I think he would be an absolute perfect fit. But Jimmy, let the people know why this signing may not come today or on Tuesday when he does visit.
Yeah, so this is going to be interesting. I was talking to one of our viewers on Twitter about this, really hyped about the idea of him coming in. But it's important to be patient here because what's happening right now, the draft is coming up. The first couple waves of free agency are over. And so the guys that are out there are looking for a specific fit, both them and the teams, right? It's not they're not the blue bloods, the top tiers of the free agents left. And that doesn't mean Justin Houston can't be an impactful player, but based whether it's age, injury, whatever the case may be, the guys that are out there, they're in kind of a predicament because right now, the way that it works is if we sign a guy previous to the draft, that will make us forfeit a future compensatory pick. However, if we wait until the Monday after the draft, which this year is May 3rd, we can sign that same free agent, and it doesn't take away from a future compensatory pick.
Yeah.
So this one's going to be interesting because I feel like we've done these deals in the past where we've done like, I said on Twitter, it's like a handshake deal, right? A little bit of back channeling. Say, hey, look, we're committed to you. This is our word to you. This is your money on the table. We just can't put pen to paper until this date. And I think for any team that cares about comp picks, well, more than any other team, it's going to be the Ravens. I think you brought up an interesting stat that shows how much the Ravens care about compensatory picks and why this matters. If we were another team, this might not matter. They might just sign him outright.
Right.
But the Ravens really care about their comp picks, and it's shown to be fruitful for us, that formula. So I don't think they're going to go away from who they are. Certainly. So, that's the paradigm that we're in right now as far as the signing. So it doesn't mean that if he leaves Tuesday and no deal's done, that a deal isn't imminent. Right. It's just about timing at this point.
But we all know that is a calculated risk because we could see another team, have a guy training and blow out his Achilles, for instance, and boom, now there's another team in the market for a veteran outside linebacker, and they could call Justin Houston's people and outbid the Ravens for his services.
Or he might just want to say, you know what, I want to go back to Indy.
That could be the case too. I mean, they're building a pretty strong team, and they traded for Carson Wentz. But you mentioned the compensatory picks and how much Baltimore values them, and I just wanted to expand on that point. The Ravens do lead the league in comp picks since its inception, with 53 comp picks in their franchise's history. That's 10 more than the second most team in the Green Bay Packers with 43. And just to give you a reference, the worst in that time is the Saints with just 9 comp picks compared to the Ravens 53. And I mean, I think that that can't be understated. We've done a video on the impact comp picks have made here in Baltimore, and the list is just, it's ridiculous. It's littered with quality players. So while a comp pick can only be as high as a third round pick, I think we all know that you can find tremendous value, and you can find Pro Bowlers from the third. You can find them anywhere in the draft.
Yep.
So there's no doubt that they have taken full advantage of that system more so than anyone. And I think also what that shows you is the incredible draft history that the Ravens have had. I mean, the fact that they've had that many players leave to sign big free agent contracts elsewhere says they must have drafted a whole lot of good players, because as we know, they like to keep their own. So they like to sign their good players, but they just had so many of them that sometimes they price themselves out of Baltimore. So I think it's a real credit and really shows how talented they've been in drafting, quality players all across the roster. I know they've had, the wide receiver positions that one kind of stain, but other than that, they have been drafting quality players at virtually every other position since they've been in Baltimore. So I think but here's a kind of flip side to that.
Yeah,
Jimmy.
I'm interested for you to give this take here, because this was a good point when you brought it up.
Yeah, I mean, it's not it's not impossible to think that the Ravens could decide to pull the trigger early and forfeit a pick. And that's really because, not only did they get a pick that's right now expected to be at least a fourth from Judon and at least a fourth from Unique Ngakoue, but also they have an impending third round pick coming next year from David Culley being hired to be the head coach of the Houston Texans. They got a third rounder this year, as well as a third rounder coming in next year. Now, they could look at that as, a luxury in a sense. They could look at, wow, we don't really need both of them. And if this, if signing him and guaranteeing we have a vet coming off the edge that we desperately need, then maybe we're willing to forego that fourth that Unique would have given us, because we got the third coming in from Culley and a third, fourth, depending on, how it works out for Matthew Judon. So I don't think it's, outside the realm of possibility that they could sign him on Tuesday. I think it's definitely possible. But it's also possible they could wait. And look, when Lamar Jackson's numbers are, when his contract's about to come up and he's about to get paid, these comp picks are more and more valuable every day. I mean, that's how you build out your roster by through the draft. And if you're telling me you can add another fourth round pick, we know how fourth round picks, they typically play day one here in Baltimore.
Yep.
That might not be a day one starter, but they're a contributor day one if you're a fourth round pick here in Baltimore. So it's going to be interesting to see how the Ravens decide to gamble. I mean, we've seen them gamble this offseason. They gambled with letting LJ Fort go test the free market just to get his cap number down and pretty much less than half of what it originally was going to be.
Yeah, he wasn't too thrilled. You can tell in the picture.
Yeah, he wasn't cheesing in that picture signing that contract, but So they've gambled, in the past, and I'm sure they do so with as much knowledge as they can. I'm sure they put their feelers out there and see what the market is before they make those gambles. But it will be interesting to see how they decide to play this situation out.
Yeah, it's going to be really interesting. I agree with you 100%. The one thing I'll say as well is that isn't there a threshold? So a certain amount of money that he has to be paid in that contract. This is going to have to be the top 35% of the league for. I guess this would be more for Indy's case. So like for Indy to get a comp pick back, he'd have to be in the top 35%. But that doesn't really impact us in this case.
He'd have to be in the top 5% to get
for
a
third round. But I mean, just a
round.
comp pick in general, right?
Top 35. Yep. Top 35.
So,
exactly.
and that necessarily wouldn't affect us. But one of the things I want to say about Justin Houston, because I know that people are on his grades and his dip last year. Like if you look at PFF, he had a noticeable dip last year. Part of that, I think, is so keep this in mind, guys. Part of that is I think he is a victim of his own success.
Yeah.
Where the year before, if you look at his grades, he had a defensive grade of 87.
Crazy.
I mean, at 31 years old, where he dropped off of that. And so another thing that I want you to keep in mind is that if the Ravens do sign him, I think that we have an art of signing a vet to say like a 3-year deal, and you're going to get one or at least one, if not 1.5 really good years, but 1 year that is their normal like standard production based on their career. So I think that if the Ravens sign him to a 3-year deal, now I think that they're only, their hope is that they get, their hope is they get 3 awesome years, but their expectation, I should say, is they get 1 solid year where he ticks it up. He's going to a new team. He's excited about the opportunity to contend for a championship, XYZ, and has a little bit of a chip on his shoulder. All those things like we've seen with vets that come in and he balls out for 1 year, right? Not that he won't produce in the others, but
I think that it's a good chance that third year would be completely voidable, and likely even maybe that second year could be something they could get out from under. And really, I think you're right. You're just counting on him for that 1 year. But and that kind of leads me to my next question, Jimmy, is the Ravens right now have a projected cap space of $12.6 million. So is there even a chance that they could sign him for just a 1-year deal, or do they have to add additional years just to spread out that cap hit? Because you need to have some remaining cap space for injuries and, of course, for the rookie class. So do you think they almost have to sign him to a multi-year deal?
Yeah, I think to allow him to feel comfortable with the guaranteed money, right? Because at the end of the day, that's what matters. Like, I don't know. It was all over Twitter, guaranteed, non-guaranteed money. Everyone was reacting to Brandon Marshall's tirade on I Am Athlete. I don't know if you saw that, but they were getting into Brandon Marshall believes that NBA contracts are not as guaranteed as people think. And anyway, he was completely wrong, but he went on a tirade and was upset at Chad and all these other guys. But, Andre Johnson said on the show, everyone looks at, and Andre doesn't talk a lot. He's like the Kawhi Leonard of the NFL, right?
He does. You listen. Yep.
Yeah. And so he said, literally all that matters on your contract is that guaranteed number. Nothing else matters. What am I guaranteed? Right. Like, and so, yeah, if we sign him, I say that to say, if we sign him to a 2 or 3 year deal, we can give him enough guaranteed money to where he feels good, but we can spread the cap hit out to make sure that it doesn't spike, whether year 1, 2, or 3, whatever the case may be. Yeah. So what do you think is the value of what do you see as the value for a guy like Justin Houston?
I'd have to compare him to, the other guys out there that are his contemporaries. And I don't really, let's see. Let's look at his history as what he's gotten paid most recently. So he made $8 million last year as a base salary, had a $1 million roster bonus, but he was only guaranteed $4.5 million. And carried a cap hit of $9 million. So I think that if you can get him in, and it looks like he signed, let's see if I can find his exact contract. Okay, here it is. He signed a 2-year, $23 million deal with the Colts when he signed in 2019. And he did earn 100% of that money. He earned all $23 million because he played out the length of his contract. Now, I don't think he'll get – I can't see him getting anywhere near that right now. I think if you cut that in half, I think if he got like a 2-year $12 million deal, something like that.
Like
I think
8 million guaranteed or something.
exactly. And then they can spread that 8 over the 2 years and just count 4 million or 3 and 5 million, depending on how they divvy it up. I think that would be a little bit, because the Ravens can't spend a ton. I mean, they have the Earl Thomas thing looming over their head, and then you have to prepare for a draft class that I think they're looking to add picks and looking to add, which costs money. And then of course you have to go into the season with a couple dollars left over for injuries. But yeah, let me see if I can pull up what a proper valuation of what he would get paid. But I mean, as far as a fit goes, I mean, how does he fit?
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask next.
As far as scheme goes, because to me, at least from the outside looking in, he looks like he would be a nice fit here in Baltimore.
Yeah, so that's what I was going to say. I mean, everyone talks about his pass rushing ability, and obviously that's because he's been an excellent pass rusher throughout the length of his career. But if you look at his run defense grades, the lowest he's been is a 61. I know that doesn't sound terrible, but that's his floor. So when you compare that to some of the other guys, like Yannick Ngakoue, I think is like a 48 or something like that. I mean, his run grade is just
he doesn't play the run.
All right, he reminds me of like there's a guy that plays soccer for Mexico, and he just scores goals, but literally adds no other value. Like he just plays around near the goal, puts them in. Everyone loves him, but he does nothing else. Right?
Yeah.
So like Yannick Ngakoue is very much about the numbers. Look, I think it was a good move, and I think he provided us some talent there. But Justin Houston is much more committed to the run, and so as an overall defender, we've talked about what our guys need to do. It's not just about rushing the passer, and especially because Eric talked about this. I think this is an astute point. Eric DaCosta mentioned that quarterbacks are just getting the ball out so quick that sacks are so hard to come by now. So you look at their hurries and their pressures, however you want to categorize that, and his numbers are up. And then you look at their ability to stop the run. You look at their ability in coverage. And so I think overall, for a 32-year-old edge defender, is the category we'll put him in. I don't think he can get much better than Justin Houston. I don't think you can ask for much more. And then the other thing I want to mention is that I think some people are nervous based on the fact that like Calais got injured last year and didn't seem to be the Calais Campbell of old. Calais Campbell's also 3 years older than Justin Houston. So something to keep in mind as well. But I know some people are down because Calais didn't have like this incredible year. I was expecting him to be the Calais of old, and it didn't quite happen. But what do you think as far as a scheme fit goes for Justin Houston?
Yeah, I think he's the perfect guy to bring in. I mean, he fits the bill from a physical standpoint, from his game standpoint. He definitely fits the bill, and also, another vet, another good guy that you add to the locker room, because I think we both anticipate, even if they do sign him, that they're still going to attack the position in the draft. I mean, there's no, even though they did sign Tyus Bowser and invested some money into him and Pernell McPhee, but still, they need a bona fide pass rusher and they need a young one. So I think that having those guys in the room and you accompany them with, maybe a first round pick, I think between Pernell McPhee and now Justin Houston, man, that's two real stout veterans that can teach you and show you what it is to be a pro. Of course, McPhee can teach you how to play like a Raven, and a guy who played with the old guard, and then Justin Houston can just show you how to take care of your body, how to stay on the field. I mean, look, this guy has been incredibly resilient and durable throughout his whole career. So I think he would just be a bonus, to the room. And I think Rob Ryan would be hyped to see another bona fide veteran to come in, because we always hear coaches talk about the coach on the field and how invaluable it is to have a player who's like a coach on the field, who sees things through the eyes of a coach. This is a perfect example of that. And a guy that could, really help any young guy that's going to be out there with him, and, turn into the pro that, that the Ravens are hopeful that he will. So I think he just brings, he's the typical Ravens ad this time of the year. He they don't go out and grab you right when free agency opens. They let the market kind of figure itself out, and they'll let players, they'll let other teams go after those high price, often injured guys, and they'll sit back and they'll get a guy who maybe is a little bit older, but durability, it really comes down to durability. When they say age, all they're talking about, I mean, they're talking about, is the guy going to get hurt because he's old? Well,
Yep.
all you can go by is his track record, and his track record is durability. So
Yep.
I think he would be the absolute perfect fit. And look, if it costs us, if it makes us give up a fourth next year to guarantees here, I think that's a risk I'd be willing to take because again, I don't want to. I mean, we saw who's the recent player? It was an offensive lineman that recently got hurt during training. And is now, and it forced their team to now be back on the market in that position. I don't know if I want to risk that. I mean, I know the chances of guys getting hurt in the offseason is relatively low, but there is that risk that a guy could go out and get hurt. And then
we're already thin. We're already thin at that, but it's not even like we have the full stable of guys, of like actual guys that will be on the roster.
No doubt. And we all know, like, does this not, I mean, the Ravens go into every draft. We should have expected them. We kind of did expect them. And we mentioned multiple videos that they're going to still address the edge position because they don't go into the draft with huge gaping holes on their team. They just don't. And right now, edge is a gaping hole, especially from a pass rush standpoint. I mean, I think they're fine against the run. And I think Bowser is fantastic in coverage, one of the better cover linebackers at that spot in the league. But as far as pass rush, it's a gaping hole. So I think if they don't get Justin Houston, that doesn't mean they're still not addressing it. There's no way they go into the draft with this group at outside linebacker.
Well, I'm going to I'm going to look into my crystal ball here and tell you exactly what's going to happen. I'm going to prophesy. All right.
Tell me.
So Justin Houston will be signed. I think post this meeting, like prior to the draft, they will give up a comp pick. All that you and I kind of laid the base for the importance the Ravens have on comp picks. We get that. If that equates to a 4th round pick, then that's fine. What that also means, there will be a chain event. They will trade back, I believe, in the 1st round to pick up a 4th. So to negate the loss.
Okay.
Because they still need, like you said, they still want to acquire some picks. Mm-hmm. So I think that they negate that loss by trading back, pick up a 4th. Especially because I don't think that their guy is gonna be there. I don't think a Bateman and I don't think a Terrace Marshall are gonna be there, or a top edge rush guy.
I think they'll be there. You know, in the 1st.
Yeah,
I think they'll be there. I just don't think they'd take them that high.
So yeah, that's a good point. So I don't think the value will be there in the Ravens' eyes. Is a much better way to put it. And then the last thing is, I think we're not done at edge and free agency. So I think 3 things happen. I think we'll sign Justin Houston prior to the draft. I think we'll trade back in the 1st. I don't know if it's out of the 1st, but back in the 1st. And I think he will be coupled with another signing post-draft, maybe a Jadeveon Clowney. Just saying. But I don't think that they're done. I think that
I tell you what, it better not be Jadeveon. I think you heard his demands and the stuff he's saying that came out of his camp about how he doesn't want to doesn't want to do OTAs, doesn't want to do mini camp, and he doesn't want to drop in coverage. He wants to be a 4-3 outside. I mean, a defensive end. So I don't see him. But yeah, I think you're right. I think that they could still look and see what else is out there, and maybe a Ryan Kerrigan. Yeah, but I think it's definitely something that even if Justin doesn't come in, they still have to address. You cannot go into this draft with being handcuffed to taking a pass rusher in the 1st round. They don't like that. They want to have that flexibility. They want to have that at least illusion of best player available. When we all know, when they took Patrick Queen last year, we expected it because, I mean, look, they had a hole in middle linebacker that needed to be filled. I don't think it surprised many, but to go in with really no pass rushers on the roster it'd be something I can't see the Ravens doing. So I mean, I guess it's just a wait and see what happens. I think you're right. I think there's going to be some fans that may be growing impatient when Tuesday comes and goes, and there's no news that the Ravens signed Justin Houston. They see him leaving. They wave by at the airport, but that doesn't mean he's not coming to Baltimore. So yes, we're gonna have to show some more patience as Ravens fans. I know it can be difficult at times.
Yep.
But there could be more visits scheduled for Justin Houston, just like we saw from Sammy Watkins, and he ended up coming back to Baltimore. So, just show some patience. But I would say if you had to give a percentage on whether or not Justin Houston's coming to Baltimore eventually, not necessarily on Tuesday and signing, but eventually ends up playing for Baltimore, what would you give it?
My percentage got 3 numbers in it, Glenn.
3?
1-0-0, baby. 100% chance. I think it's a perfect sign. Look, he's scary getting off the bus. You look at Justin Houston, he's off the bus. You see him warming up out there, popping coaches and things like that in the warm-up drills, and you're like, you start to think a little bit. And he's a leader. He's the captain of the team. Perfect fit, the age, the value, the timing. I think it's there. I think they're going to trade back out of the first anyway and pick up that pick, so they ain't worried about it. 100%. What about you?
Wow. I wish I could be that optimistic, but I'm still quite optimistic. I'd still say it's about an 80% chance. I think Justin Houston wants to go to a winner at this point. I look around the league at options for him, and it's a narrowing list. I mean, there's some other teams out there that could go after him, but scheme fit, he's perfect. It's a winner. I mean, the health, the training staff here, that definitely brings value to veterans. I just think there's too many arrows pointing towards a signing here in Baltimore. So yeah, I would say 80% chance, but I'm hoping you're right, and I'm hoping it's 100 because this guy will be absolutely perfect. And as we did our mock, we ended up with Zaven Collins here. Imagine him, tutoring a Zaven Collins and what that guy brings from an athletic standpoint. I mean, whoo, that would be a scary group.
And you talk about you go from a hole to a surplus, right?
No doubt about it. No doubt about it. Because as much as Bowser doesn't bring a lot to the pass rush game, we know he brings a lot in those other areas. And I think that's why he's still here in Baltimore. So, yeah, I'd be happy. But let us know what you guys think.
Yeah.
Do you want Justin Houston here in Baltimore? Are you worried that it could affect the comp picks if they sign him too early? Does that not matter to you at all? Let us know what you think, and we'll talk soon.